Hello, I'm Dr. Elmar Trafts. Welcome back to Designing for the Digital Revolution Web3 edition. This is day 2 of our 5-day intensive course, which happens on Zoom and on campus in room N333. Today in this lecture we will discuss what a brand actually is, what is the digital engagement framework and the loyalty loop, and how to analyze your competitors. After the lecture in the tutorial, we'll create a digital engagement framework and a competitor analysis of an NFT project. And we will also discuss your assignment 1, which is a critique of a current NFT project. So let's get started with day 2. First off, what is a brand? How do you define a brand? And how is it different to making a logo or an advertising campaign? Let's watch this video of Martin Neumeier and how he defines what a brand is.
The term branding, people use it interchangeably with logo design, identity design, or even sometimes typography. And maybe we need to set the record straight. I know you're the best person to tell us. What is branding, Marty?
Yeah, so let's start with what branding isn't.
Okay.
It's because it's not a lot of things people say it is. It's not a logo.
Okay.
A logo is a very useful tool for a business, but it's not the brand. It's a symbol for the brand. A brand is not a product. So when people talk about this brand, buying this brand or that brand, they're really talking about buying one product or another product. The brand is not that. People say the brand is a promise the company makes to customers, and there's some truth in that.
Yep.
I mean, it does end up acting as a promise, but that's not what it is either. Advertising people like to say, well, it's the sum of all the impressions that a company makes on an audience.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you're trying to sell a lot of impressions, I can see where that might be useful to you. But from a business's point of view, why do they want that? Right. So, and how does that help
Self-serving
creative people understand what they're doing?
Right.
So none of those things are really what branding is. A brand is a result. It's a customer's gut feeling about a product, a service, or a company. It ends up in their heads, in their hearts. They take whatever raw materials you throw at them and they make something out of it. But they're making it, they're creating it. And so in a sense, when you create a brand, you're not creating one brand, you're creating millions of brands, like however many customers or people in your audience.
Oh.
Each one has a different brand of you. So a brand is like a reputation, right? So it's your business reputation, and everyone's going to be a little bit different about what that reputation is. And that's okay, as long as you've got it corralled mostly where you want it and that it's beneficial to the company. So we tend to look at companies and designers tend to look at branding as, from our point of view, like this is something we're doing. We're telling a story. We're making a claim. We're making a pitch. And that's what we do, but that's not what a brand is. A brand is the result of that. And if you don't start there, you don't know what you're doing. You actually don't know what you think you know what you're doing, but you don't. So from a designer's point of view, I mean, I always tended to be this way. It's like, it was my gut feeling, right, about whether this is going to work or not. And then I would sell it as hard as I could to get the client to sign off on it. From the client's point of view, they're going, well, it's a checklist. I got the logo, I got the tagline, I got the ad campaign, click, check, and they think they're done.
Right.
None of that's right. What's right is what happens in people's heads. Like, what have we achieved? Like, what's the reputation that we've created through the products we're putting out, like and the design of the products, the messaging we're putting out, the look and feel of them, our culture, how does that affect people? How our employees behave, how is that affecting our reputation? All that stuff counts. So it's a big world, and it actually takes in almost all of business. Not so much finance, but finance is involved too, because finance has to greenlight all these things. But almost everybody in a company is, affecting the brand, doing something with the brand, doing it for the brand, or hurting the brand. So you got to think of it that way.
Whew. I didn't want to say one word because that was perfect. This is unscripted. Marty's just talking from decades of experience and writing and articulating this. It's very clear to me.
I also encourage you to watch the full interview of Martin Neumeier after you watch this lecture today. So a brand is different to an identity and a logo. A brand includes your gut feeling, emotions and memories of how you experienced a certain product or service of a company. Where the identity of a company focuses more on how their email newsletter is formatted or what type of colors they use on their website. The logo then is really just a symbol that a company uses to let people know what it is. As you can see in this Dove example, the Dove brand is really much more than the form of their logo or the font they use. It is how they engage with topics of society that makes them unique. Seth Godin says, "A brand is a set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that, taken together, account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another." If the consumer, whether it's a business, a buyer, a voter, or a donor, doesn't pay a premium, make a selection, or spread the word, then no brand value exists for that consumer. Let's watch this video of Seth Godin and see how he explains this in context of the Nike Colin Kaepernick ad. This brings us back to how customers actually engage with brands and the discussion what's wrong with the funnel versus the loyalty loop. In the following Creating Connections video, it is well explained how better engage with customers with brands in the digital age.
The key to raising anticipation is actually to get them emotionally involved, because today, trading a piece of data or time, for insight at a moment of commitment is such a mechanical thing. Like, we just do it without thinking. So there's no emotion involved in that transaction. What we have to do when you're raising anticipation is actually get them to feel more excited.
If you follow Creating Connections, you're likely familiar with the funnel model for the customer journey, which describes the stages you need to convert a prospect through on their path to making a purchase decision. And if you've been following some of the thought leaders in the space, you may also know that the funnel model is broken, as it was created at a time when brands had more power than consumers. But in the digital age, where the customer has control over the buying journey, we need to think differently about how we educate the market, how we create moments of true inspiration and anticipation, and how we slow down the buying process to ultimately speed it up. Welcome to Creating Connections, the show that explores the human element in an increasingly digital business world. I'm your host, Tyler Lessard, and today we're speaking with Andrew Davis, a man who challenges the status quo and changes the way that businesses think. He was a producer for NBC's Today Show. He worked for the Muppets in New York. He's the best-selling author of Brandscaping, and he's now working on a new book called Loyalty Loop, which will explain why we need to trade the old funnel for a brand new Slinky.
I'm Andrew Davis. I ran a marketing agency for 12 years based in Boston, Massachusetts. I sold that in 2012. And since then, I've just been writing books and challenging some of the traditional ideas in marketing and trying to find better ways for us to build better relationships in a digital age. And so the loyalty loop for me has been like a long-term challenge, one that started with my kind of fascination with the funnel as kind of the primary framework we use to try to figure out how to market to people.
Isn't the funnel superhuman and personal?
It seems like it, right? It should. It's just so.
It's like even shaped like a human.
I know. Wait a second. Is that the funnel?
No.
Yeah. So I started by trying to find out when the funnel, came about, and it was invented by a guy in 1898. And I thought, why are we using a framework that was invented in 1898? And so over the last 3 or 4 years, I've been trying to find a better framework, one that more accurately illustrates the modern consumer journey, that takes into account the way people search, the way people act, the kinds of commitments people make to brands in smaller steps. Whereas the funnel is just, it's a one-way tool. It's completely based on your ability to raise awareness for your brand. It's a very basic, framework. And so So the loyalty loop is about showcasing how marketers and salespeople can actually build small moments of commitment that are designed to actually build a real relationship from untrusted to trusted over time.
Yeah, it's interesting because the funnel is very conversion centric, right?
It's totally
100%
conversion centric.
Conversion centric. It's missing, I think, that critical relationship element
Yeah.
to it. But what it's also missing is that, you come out the bottom as a customer and
Hey, we're done. We did our
we're
job.
done.
That's the problem. That's a huge problem with it. It doesn't really help you understand how to use the customers you've got to get those customers to spend more or come back, or to get those customers to get more customers for you. And so a challenge in trying to design a framework that would do that was really about understanding how you can learn from the customers you have and build an experience that's really different so that new people come on board and understand how your experience is different instead of just trying to figure out what features and benefits you should highlight on the front end.
So let's talk about these elements of an experience
Yeah.
for audiences today. And you talk about in Loyalty Loop these ideas of micro moments,
Yeah.
and you mentioned this sort of continued commitments that people make. Can you just explore that idea a little bit and talk through sort of what your perspective is on that?
Yeah, well, I'll just walk through kind of, I think, the steps of the journey that people make, and I think that'll help illuminate how the experience is different. So, like every consumer, and I use the word consumer like for everyone, because we're all consumers. There's a moment of inspiration, and a moment of inspiration is an instant in time that sends you on a journey you never expected. So like the other day, we send out proposals using Google Docs, right? So we customize a Google Doc. It's really inefficient and they're ugly. And I wanted to make our Google Doc proposals look better. So that's a moment of inspiration, right? I want my Google Docs proposals to look better. Right. That's an instant in time that's sending me on a journey I never expected. The first thing that pops into your mind is called a trigger question. And the trigger question is the first question that pops into your mind the instant that moment happens. So my question is, how can I make my Google Doc proposal templates look better, right? The next thing that happens is called the prime brand. And the prime brand is your brain's like immediate reaction on where to get the answer to that question.
Right.
And so maybe, if you're watching this or listening to it, you already know of a proposal software you use. Maybe you use DocuSign for that. I don't know. All right, so that's your prime brand. Right. Whereas my prime brand was Google. Like that's where I want to go to answer this question. And so you now move into like active evaluation, which is when you're adding and subtracting brands as you go through this journey. So I type into Google, how to make my Google Doc proposal templates look better, right? Yeah. And then I start seeing brands like, DocuSign might show up, or Proposify showed up, I remember that. And they had a whole section on how to make better proposals, but their content was all about like how to write them better. Right. I don't think they need writing help, right? I want design help. So in that phase, you kind of going around and around. And the goal of every marketer, if you're thinking in the funnel sense, is get them to convert, right? Proposify is trying to sell me the software, whereas all I want is some help with my Google Doc templates. And the next phase is like the moment of commitment. And these are these micro moments. The moment of commitment and the moment of inspiration are really, really important. And all you need to get in a moment of commitment is someone to trade some data or just some time, or sure, some money sometimes, to get to the next phase of the relationship. So just thinking about that Proposify example, they could have said, hey, you want 10 free downloadable document templates that make your proposals look better for Google Docs? Like, sign up here, we'll send you those templates and show you how to use them. Because what they really will be able to do in that process is show me that it's really inefficient using Google Docs, right? And if they want to get me to do that, they have to have a new moment of inspiration in my mind. And so they have to understand the journey I'm on and the small commitments and moments I need to have in my own personal journey in a reliable way to build that trust over time. Yeah. And the loyalty loop part is just from the moment of commitment to the next moment of inspiration, to the next question where that brand answers the question. And you go from like the very top of thinking, I don't trust these people, I'm not sure what they're delivering to me, to being like, wow, I should sign up and do all my proposals through this company. Does that make sense? It was long-winded.
No, it does. It does. And I think the challenge for a lot of us is thinking about, okay, I know I want to answer these questions that people are asking, and those are important moments in building that relationship, in earning the trust of my audience and working them down that journey. It's also going to help me build my brand and make things more shareable. What have you seen in terms of like how companies marketers, sellers need to think differently about operationalizing that? Because
Yeah.
I think in traditional marketing, we think a lot about, well, content and inbound marketing is responsible for that, and it's all very SEO centric,
Yeah.
and bring them in here. And then once they're in our database, then we do these campaigns.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us need to think about how do we break out of those mechanics and have a bit of a different perspective that's more aligned to the way people actually converse with brands now.
Yeah, well, I think you should start with the moments of commitment that you've already got, right? So the first thing you should do is think about the experience you're delivering for every moment of commitment you've already been offering a consumer. So if you've got an opportunity to download a white paper, or download a tool, or take a survey, or read a document, or take a tutorial, or even a free trial, those are all moments of commitment. And the first thing you need to do is say, how is the experience we deliver after that moment of commitment driving to the next moment of inspiration?
Right.
And can we lead them to that in an organized way? Because most people think of the campaign as they downloaded the white paper, okay, schedule a sales call, like immediately they're interested, right? Whereas in fact, they may not be interested in the sales call until you get them to the point at which there's a moment of inspiration and they want the answer to a very specific question, which the sales call can actually serve.
Right.
So start with those first moments of commitment immediately, and then start thinking about like three kind of, I call them micro methods you can use to actually change the experience from all the competition. So if you're downloading a white paper, a lot of us want to immediately give them access to the white paper, and then 2 seconds later, the phone will ring with the salesperson saying, like, I see you downloaded the white paper, right? Like, that's an experience that everybody knows and understands. And we need to first ask ourselves, what's their biggest post-commitment concern? So if you know their biggest post-commitment concern in filling out that email address is that you're going to make a phone call, a lot of times they'll give you their spam email address, right? So you need to kind of head those off and ensure that the experience you deliver is going to be good. So first, what's your biggest post-commitment concern for the consumer? Second thing is raise anticipation. Instead of just immediately sending it, you can say, like, we're putting it together right now for you, but you want to build an experience that actually gets them more excited about the thing they asked for or the thing they committed to before you actually send it. That doesn't mean you need to let them wait 3 days, but you need to actually build this anticipation for the experience you're going to deliver. The next thing you can do is I call it scaling camaraderie, but a lot of times I'll get an immediate response from a salesperson, and the salesperson just wants to get me on the phone.
Right.
But they haven't done anything to introduce themselves to me in a really meaningful way. Yep. And so scaling camaraderie is all about actually taking the team you've got and introducing the team to the people so that you're building personalized trust in a meaningful way. And the last one is reverse personalization, which is similar. But reverse personalization is, instead of trying to personalize the experience for every consumer, actually try to think about how you can build a personalized experience that introduces them to the brand in a really meaningful way over time. So if I read that white paper, what's the next moment of inspiration that white paper needs to drive to? And if I'm the proposal template people from Proposify, I need to get them to the point at which they go, man, customizing this Google Doc is going to take me forever. Why would I do that? And as soon as I have that moment of inspiration, I need to send them something that's like, hey, you know what? I bet you're thinking right now that this is going to be complicated. Right. Maybe there's a better way. Why don't you do this, right? And that's the next step of the journey. Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And because there's very tangible things that I think we can think about in a lot of these just really important moments, like you said, because there's, along this buyer's journey, there's, as marketers, we all recognize these moments of intent, right? And we say, okay, this and then, but we usually think, well, what happens? Well, we give them a score and send them to sales.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Which is a, very mechanical way to think about it. But there's reasons why we do that. But I think it raises that great question of, how can we create more anticipation? That's one idea I really, I'm really passionate about, and I think you have lots of great examples and ideas of how to raise anticipation, how to, get your audience leaning in and really wanting to engage with you. Yeah. What have you seen there in terms of what brands are actually doing, or what are some?
The key to raising anticipation is actually to get them emotionally involved, because today, trading a piece of data or time for insight at a moment of commitment is such a mechanical thing. Like we just do it without thinking. And so there's no emotion involved in that transaction. What we have to do when you're raising anticipation is actually get them to feel more excited. And so the key to actually making it work, the best example I have is the Domino's pizza tracker. Have you tried this thing?
I sure have.
Okay, so everybody, if you're watching or listening right now, you have to try the Domino's pizza tracker. And if you've never tried it, you got to do it today, okay? Because I cannot express to you how it feels.
When your pizza goes in the oven.
See, he knows. And all of a sudden you find yourself watching this pulsating light and nothing's really happening.
Right.
But you're more excited about the pizza than you would be without it.
Yeah.
And that's the key. So if you're going to, even if we're taking something simple, I'm using really basic examples, but if you're sending a white paper, and the first email you get isn't, hey, here's the white paper you asked for, which is essentially the transaction, right? But it's like, hey, you just signed up for the white paper. We're putting it together for you right now. You're going to have it in 2 minutes, but you're going to learn these 3 things. And I bet those are big 3 things that you need to understand.
Yeah.
It's on its way. Just wait a few more minutes. That's raising anticipation in a very small way, right? Yeah. Or I'm going to explain this chart in this white paper, and here's the chart. And let them think about what the chart means before you get the white paper. So it's all about these little moments that are designed to do this. Another good example is whenever you're making an appointment. And if you're doing this at home, and every time there's a moment of commitment, make a list. Like, what do you do after that moment of commitment?
Right.
And you need to write down the small things. Like if you're a salesperson and you make an appointment with someone to have a sales call on Monday at 3 p.m., what do you do? Okay, you email them a calendar invite, and maybe the day before you email them a confirmation that we're still on for tomorrow, right? Those are the 2 things you do. Then in the second column, just write they do, okay? And write down what the competition does, what other people do. Now, anything that's on both lists, you want to cross out.
Right.
Because everybody does them,
Yeah.
right? Now, to build a differentiated experience, you want to say, how can I transform the experience of just having a sales call with me?
Yeah.
How can I raise anticipation? Is there any way I could remove friction from the experience? Maybe it's a requirement. You got to send a calendar invite just to get on the calendar. Okay, that one's back on the list. But right after that, what can I do to transform the experience for them so that they're more excited about that sales call or that meeting before they walk into the meeting than they would have been if I had done nothing or done what everybody else did?
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of a great example of that. My friends at an organization called Impact, and when they book meetings with prospective customers, 2 things happen. One is they will send a video to introduce themselves as a sales rep prior to the call.
That's reverse personalization.
Right.
That's good.
And
That's perfect.
And it may be a one-to-one, or it may be one they pre-recorded,
Fine.
introducing themselves to build that human rapport.
Love it.
And then they actually send them a bit of homework before the meeting, which is a video where they explain answers to the top 5 questions that they get on every first sales call. And the reason they do that is it not only makes the call itself more productive because you're getting, you're not spending time answering those questions, but I believe it creates that, greater sense of anticipation for the potential buyer, because now they know they're going into the call more well-informed and they're expecting a more productive conversation.
That's great.
Right.
Yeah, video is a great way to implement any of these ideas because it is a very human connection, and building trust is all about building those human connections, and that's why reverse personalization is one of the key aspects to really making this work, like actually building an experience that's designed to kind of reverse engineer the relationship you're trying to build by giving a lot of information about yourself up front so that people feel like they've built rapport. And it doesn't matter if they're actually personalized in the sense that we think about it. Like, you don't have to use the first name. You don't have to have a whiteboard that says their name even. You just need to build the right relationship and have the right kind of information at the right time to really make them feel like the relationship's progressing at a speed that's comfortable. Because that's another thing, we rush the relationship.
Right.
In a digital world, people move a lot slower than you can on a sales call. And that's why I think there's a rush to a sales call, but you can get a lot farther, a lot faster if you're smart about the moments of commitment and the moments of inspiration that you deliver.
Oh, it's amazing. So let me ask one last question,
Yeah.
and it's pertaining to the side of sales, because
Yeah.
I think it's these are really important ideas for marketers, but I think equally, if not more, for sales reps and that need to build more human connection, better relationships, and I know a lot of sales reps in digital remote roles struggle with that, significantly. So we talked a little bit about video, but I'm curious, in that realm or outside of it, what other things do you see out there that sales reps should be thinking about, or what other advice would you have for sales teams who are trying to take these ideas and think about, how do I really put this into practice and help humanize these relationships to boost our performance?
I think on the sales side, a big piece of the puzzle is trying to scale what they're doing. They do a lot of really great one-off tasks, right? And maybe they have a method that they feel like is working, but it's not scalable in a way that actually increases their success rate over time, or uses learnings from prior experiences to deliver a better experience, right? So it wholly relies on their ability and personality, usually in interpersonal relationships and conversations, to make the sale move forward. The best salespeople are actually kind of trained to take a much more methodological approach to it and saying, all right, like the first moment of inspiration I need them to have is this. The next commitment I want them to make is this. How can I actually create a piece of content that I can reuse on a regular basis that creates those moments of inspiration in the mind of the consumer, and at a very high success rate gets me to the next moment of commitment? And at that point, how do I then take that moment of commitment and move it to the next moment of inspiration? Because you can send 50, 60, 70 of those an hour, not a day, an hour, if you're really good at slowing down the sales call. And salespeople that are really good on the phone should just take the time, every time they're hearing their customer go, oh yeah, I have that problem. Those are the small moments of inspiration you need to hit. And when you're doing it digitally, it's going to be a longer helix of these kind of relationships that you're building, and smaller interactions over time that still result in the same success rate. But it's a big, long helix of them. Can I pull out my Slinky?
Do you have any way, I was going to ask if you have any way to help the audience visualize
Let's redo that.
this idea of a helix.
Do I have any way to? Yes, I do. This is how it looks. So here, if you're on the other end of this, like most of us just try to get people from a moment of inspiration, a trigger question, right to a moment of commitment, and that's like the phone call, right? Like if you're the salesperson. If you're a salesperson that wants to scale that, you have to actually think of it like this, where you're actually taking the first moment of inspiration leading to a new trigger question. Here, let me do it here. A moment of inspiration that leads to a new trigger question and a new moment of commitment that leads to a new moment of inspiration to a new moment of commitment. So it's like, I'm inspired to learn more about your product, and that's great, but it's not like, hey, do you want to hop on the phone? Because that is a moment of commitment. It's like, great, let me teach you something about it that gets you a new moment of inspiration. And the sales call might be here, but it's only 5 minutes, and it's just to sign them up. Does that make sense out there in video land?
For those listening, we are actively using a Slinky here as a prop to showcase the idea of the helix-based relationship building model.
The loyalty loop. Yeah, exactly. Hopefully that helped.
It actually did help me. And I think the important thing of the helix model is it forces you to stop thinking about trying to jump too far at any given time, right? Which is the funnel keeps us in that mindset of, I'm trying to get from here to here, and I got to do it as quickly as possible. And these days it just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. It's too many leaps too fast for the consumer. And you can really scale your relationships better if you think about the small moments of inspiration that they need to have, and the moments of commitment that you want them to take to get to the next step.
So my pizza's ready.
Yay!
So
we gotta go, man.
I'm
so excited for that pizza.
Can you let everybody watching and listening know where they can find more about yourself and about the ideas we've explored here today?
Yeah, so if you're out there listening or watching, I do a weekly series on YouTube called The Loyalty Loop. You can find it there, or on LinkedIn. Just search for #LoyaltyLoop. You can find me on Instagram. I'm @DrewDavisHere. I'm also the same on Twitter, and my website is akadrewdavis.com, and the Loyalty Loop book will be out in January of 2020. So if you want a discounted copy, email me and say you heard me on creating connections, and I'll send you one.
That is a moment of inspiration.
That is a moment of inspiration.
Take this opportunity to make the commitment.
Yes, see, little moment of commitment, just send me an email. Trade some data for some information and insight.
Thank you so much, Drew.
Thanks,
That was
Tyler.
great, man.
This was
Appreciate
fun.
it.
So the loyalty loop is based on the idea that you need to continuously trigger your customer to engage and immerse the customer step by step. This abstract theory is all good and well, but let's look at how we can engage with a brand digitally in more detail. For this, we will look at the digital engagement framework. The digital engagement framework helps you to design the strategies, processes, and technologies to systematically engage all stakeholders with your institution in order to maximize the value you create. As with any framework, it is a simplification of the real world. The digital engagement framework is based on years of designing, implementing innovative communication, marketing, audience development, and new media strategies around the world. A trivial example would be that your assets are your Instagram posts. Your reach are the amount of Instagram followers you have. The audience are your actual Instagram followers. And the engagement is the amount of likes and comments that you're getting from your followers. That is, of course, an oversimplification, but it is in essence that what it is. The digital engagement framework helps you ask the right people the right questions at the right time. You could say developing a digital engagement framework is mostly Q&A. There are 10 different types of questions ranging from visionary to operational. We will talk you through each tab and show how others have answered them. As far as we know, the digital engagement framework has never been used by a circus, which makes it safe for us to use as an example. Like many examples in this book, this framework is not necessarily exhaustive, but meant to show how to use the digital engagement framework in different situations. Heritage is all about stories and connecting people with the past. This example framework gives ideas about how digital engagement might work for a mid-sized heritage site with a small collection and enthusiastic staff and volunteers. Think, for instance, about a small castle on an old factory. Like all other examples in this section, this one is not exhaustive. It zooms in on some core ideas, such as connecting with niche audiences and becoming a local online hub. Arts councils and many other organizations have their strength in the institutions and individuals they represent often struggle with finding the right balance between their own digital identity and the digital identities of those they represent. On the other hand, they can benefit from the assets of everyone involved and become both a knowledge and experience base and niche community in the digital age. For one-off events such as exhibitions and performances, strategy might be replaced with campaign. Although you should never underestimate the digital potential in the long run of looking strategically at digital engagement. Extended runs with precise or tours turn short events into multi-year productions worthy of a strategy. This example focuses on stimulating visits by using word of mouth that specializes as well as user-generated content to stimulate new visits. Festivals are among the most challenging and exciting events to design digital strategies for. Why? After years of preparation, everything has to go well in a very short span of time, sometimes only in hours. Viral effects only work when you're planning on doing a follow-up, so you have to be creative to build something from scratch. This example focuses on building trust through the acts and visitors attending the festival and registration for possible future editions. A typical theater is a wonderful, diverse place where people come to enjoy plays, dance, music, and other performing arts, but also to eat, drink, socialize, and maybe also enjoy a small exhibition. At the same time, the theater is only the venue for all these fun things, and visitors might relate more to the theater companies and others using the venue. To build loyal visitors, this framework tries to turn Facebook fans into paying members and uses behind-the-scenes information to reach out to the audience. The local library is where love of reading begins. The rooms full of books and readers are among our favorite places in the world. At the same time, the digital revolution hasn't been easy on anything and anyone book related. This example framework proposes a focus on online recommendations as a service and enticing readers to do more at the library. Can you use the digital engagement framework for yourself? Well, yes, believe you can. In this example, we show how an artist could use the framework to find an audience, build a brand, and connect with an audience. It also shows how, through crowdfunding, an artist might find alternative sources of income to make work. Of course, any independent professional can use the framework similarly. So these were some examples of how to use the digital engagement framework. As a next step, we want to look at how you can analyze your competitors to make sure you know how you position yourself uniquely and you understand how to best compete against your competitors. To achieve this, we have to do a competitor analysis. The competitor analysis is a flexible approach for understanding where a product or service fits compared to offers available in the market. The method can be used to evaluate existing products or services against the market or gather information on what already exists in order to identify opportunities for a new product or service. The initial step is to identify the market. Depending on the reach of the envisioned design solution, this can involve either local competitors or global players. Even if the design solution is only addressing a local market, it can still be valuable to also consider a few international competitors. The method relies on coding structure in the form of a set of variables that is either predetermined or created for the context of the design project. By using this coding structure for collecting information about each of the competitors, it is possible to easily compare and monitor and understand the market and how a new product or service would fit in. A competitor analysis can be completed with perceptual maps by choosing specific variables and asking potential customers or users to rank each competing product or service. Completing a competitor analysis early on in a design process is critical to avoid being blindsided by the competition. Assessing the strengths and weaknesses of competitors leads to better understanding of opportunities to improve competitive advantages. However, any gaps identified in the market need to be carefully considered. Sometimes there's good reason why an approach hasn't been implemented by any of the competitors. To create a competitor analysis, first, generate a list of potential competitors that offer a similar product or service. Consider both local and international companies and their products or services. Try to identify the top 4 most significant competitors. Second, brainstorm variables and write them down in a list. These are relevant factors against which each competitor could be evaluated. Variables may include basic variables like price or quality, or be more specific to your chosen sector. For example, product categories, customer segments, primary revenue stream, all these things. Third, review and refine your list to identify the variables most relevant to your chosen sector. Write these down in the left column of the competitor analysis table. Fourth, plot each of the 4 companies into the competitor analysis table. Now you can begin to analyze. Are all the companies targeting the same customer, offering the same value? Where do they differ most significantly? Fifth, discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the competitors, highlighting any gaps or opportunities your company might benefit from. For more details on the competitor analysis, please go to the Think, Make, Break book, page 42. The template is also available on Canvas in this week's modular section. For more details on the competitor analysis for social media, please visit the following links. For your first assignment, you need to include all the tutorial exercises we have done so far and will do today. So your first assignment will need to include an online ethnography, a digital engagement framework, and a competitor analysis of a Web3 NFT project. Furthermore, you will need to include all steps outlined in the assignment number 1 section on the Canvas website. But most importantly, you will need to explain why the NFT project you chosen was or is successful. For more questions about the lecture or your assignment, please email me or message me on Slack. This completes our lecture for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks.